Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we're diving into economics, but not the complicated, headache-inducing kind. We're talking about economics in a way that actually makes sense. And joining us is the man who made that possible. Charles, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, James. Glad to be here.
Your book explains economics in a very simple, human way. No heavy math, no confusing graphs, just clear thinking. So let's start with the big question. What is economics really?
At its core, economics is about choices. Life is full of limited resources, time, money, energy, and we constantly decide how to use them. Economics simply studies how individuals and societies make those decisions.
So economics is less about numbers and more about behavior.
Exactly. Economics is really about incentives and trade-offs. Why do people do what they do? What happens when rules change? How do markets organize millions of individual decisions into something that works or sometimes fails?
One of the biggest takeaways from your book is the power of incentives. Why are incentives so important?
Because people respond to them, always. If you want to change behavior, change the incentive structure. For example, if a government taxes cigarettes heavily, smoking tends to fall. If companies reward performance, productivity rises.
So good policy means understanding how people actually behave, not how we wish they behaved.
Exactly. One of the biggest mistakes in economics is designing systems based on ideal human behavior instead of real human behavior.
Another concept you explain very well is the idea of markets. Many people think markets are chaotic or unfair, but you describe them as surprisingly efficient.
Markets are powerful because they coordinate information. Think about prices. They carry signals. When something becomes scarce, prices rise. That tells producers to make more and consumers to use less. No central planner needs to control everything.
So prices are like messages.
Yes, they communicate value, scarcity, and demand all at once.
But markets don't always work perfectly, right?
Definitely not. Markets fail in several situations, like pollution. If a factory pollutes a river but doesn't pay for the damage, society bears the cost. Economists call that an externality.
So when markets fail, that's when government intervention makes sense.
Yes, in theory. Government can fix certain problems markets can't handle well. But governments also make mistakes, so the real challenge is balancing market efficiency with smart regulation.
Let's talk about productivity. You emphasize that long-term prosperity depends heavily on productivity growth. Why?
Because productivity determines how much we can produce with the same resources. When workers become more productive through education, technology, or better organization, living standards rise.
So economic growth isn't magic, it's efficiency improving over time.
Exactly. Wealth comes from producing more value per person.
Another fascinating part of your book is globalization. Many people see it as either completely good or completely bad, but your view is more balanced.
Globalization creates winners and losers. Trade increases total wealth overall, but some workers and industries are harmed in the process. The challenge is helping those who lose adjust through education, retraining, and social policy.
So the goal isn't to stop globalization, but to manage its effects.
Precisely.
Let's talk about financial markets. People often think they're mysterious or even dangerous.
Financial markets exist to move money from where it's sitting idle to where it can be used productively. That's essential for innovation and growth. But when incentives are misaligned or regulation is weak, instability can happen.
Like financial crises?
Exactly. Most crises come from excessive risk, poor information, or distorted incentives.
One thing I really appreciated is how your book removes fear from economics. Many people think economics is only for experts.
That's a big misconception. Economics is simply structured common sense. Once you understand incentives, trade-offs, and efficiency, the world becomes much easier to understand.
Before we wrap up, let me ask, if listeners remember just one idea from this conversation, what should it be?
Everything has a cost, even when it's hidden. Whenever you see a policy, decision, or trend, ask who benefits, who pays, and what incentives are driving behavior.
That's powerful and practical. Charles, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation. We explored incentives, markets, productivity, globalization, financial systems, and how economics shapes everyday life. But honestly, we've only scratched the surface. If you want a clear, simple, and deeply practical understanding of how the economic world really works, you need to read the full book yourself. It explains complex ideas in a way that's logical, engaging, and surprisingly easy to understand. Thank you all for listening. And Charles, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, take care, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.